video on Claude Cowork. And these next 5 sections, what we're going to cover is first learning how to use Claude Cowork inside the desktop, specifically Claude sub-agents for LinkedIn outreach, for Google Maps outreach, and for website outreach. So we are basically going to take a list of businesses. We're going to scrape their website data, their Google Maps data, their Google My Business data, and their LinkedIn data. Then once we built these 3 sub-agents, we're going to build one single Claude managed agent. And a Claude managed agent is nothing more than an orchestrator, is basically responsible for the decision making and coordination, while sub-agents are responsible for the execution. Our managed agent setup. Then we're going to use a Claude skill to help us write cold emails to reach out to these prospects. The last part of the system is going to be building or assembling an agent team, which combines all 4 of the previous sections. We are going to have an orchestrator take a list of 10 businesses, the lead researcher managed agent, which in turn is going to call each of its 3 sub-agents, the LinkedIn outreach, the website outreach, and the Google Maps outreach. Claude skill, the cold email writer that we have set up. The final output is going to be 10 well-structured cold emails ready to send out to these prospects. And so without further ado, let's jump right in. So to start using Claude Cowork, you're going to need the Claude desktop. And once you have it downloaded and you open it up, you will see 3 tabs in here: the chat, Cowork, and code. For the sake of this demo and what we're going to be covering in the next 5 sections, we're just going to focus on this Cowork. Now, I've just given Claude a command saying, hey Claude, can you research 10 businesses from Adelaide from a mix of dental, trades, legal, gym, and accounting? Can you build a spreadsheet in Google Sheets for me with columns CEO name, company website, and LinkedIn URL? Populate the spreadsheet with what you find. Claude just goes off and starts researching. It uses a bunch of its web tools and a bunch of other tools. And as you can see, it's combining and compiling a list for us. Once that is done, you can see it says, good, I now have data for all 10 businesses. Let me load the Google Drive tools to create the sheet. And this is where, based on the connectors you have set up, you can use Google Drive. If you had Excel installed, you can just use an Excel file locally. If you come into Customize, you can see the connectors that you have set in here. So as you can see, these are the apps I have set up. Google Drive is one of them. So if you wanted to set up any one of these, you can just click the plus sign, click on Browse Connectors, and you have a whole bunch of apps to choose from. You would just click the one you're looking for, use the OAuth login, which is basically you would just need to sign in for most, and then it will be set up as a connector. In some cases, you can set up custom connectors as well using API keys, connectors and apps that Claude gives us right out of the box. Once we have our data for all 10 businesses, it's just going to create this Google Drive sheet. And right now, that's what it's asking us for permission. So I say allow for this task. You can see that it is completely done. It says the Google Sheet is live in your Drive. And if I click on this link, you can see it has given us a list of business names, the category, the CEO or owner name, the company website, and the LinkedIn, which is absolutely amazing. So as you can see, we have our Google Sheets set up. I'm just going to go ahead and download this as a CSV file. And once that is done, I'm just going to go ahead and paste it inside our Claude Code instance. And I'm going to explain what all we have in here in just a second. But for right now, we have this Claude native demo project set up, right? It's just a folder on my laptop. Inside here, we have a .env.example file, which has a placeholder for our Google Maps API key. Inside the env file, I have the actual Maps API key set up. If you don't have a Google Maps API key, you can get one by going to console.cloud.google.com and you can set one up. Another way of doing it is you just go to Claude and ask it, how do I set up and get my Google Maps API key for the Places API. And you can basically ask Claude this question. It will give you an entire step-by-step instruction of how do you get your Google Maps API key. So it will tell you to go to console.cloud.google.com, create a new project, give it a name, enable billing, enable the Places API. These are pretty straightforward and easy to do. You can restrict your key once you have your API key just to use the Google Maps Places service. And then once you have that, you can just paste it into your env variable and it should be good to go. Now you always want to keep your key secret so that other people can't use it and run up a bill on your account. One thing to note is the Places API and most of the Google services have pretty lenient usage on their free plans. And even though you do have to set up a credit or debit card, you can see that it gives you $200 each month of free credit, which covers plenty of development usage. Just to give you a quick preview of what that would look like is once you are logged into console.cloud.google.com using your Google account, under the APIs and services section, you can always just look for the Places API. So you can see that I have it enabled already. And the other thing to set up is once you have clicked on enable, which is just a one-click process, you would come to your keys and credentials. And inside my keys and credentials tab, you can see that I have these API keys set up. So if you wanted to see these keys, you can always click show key, or if you haven't set one up, you can always go ahead and set one up for the first time. And so it's pretty straightforward. You just come in here, click on API key, you give it API key 3 Claude test, or we could just give it anything like that. So it gives us a list of restrictions that we want to have. I want to make sure that the Places API is not restricted, and then I'm going to go ahead and say create, and then it's going to give us an API key that we would just copy across and paste into env file. So you would paste it in here as a value, and that would be the entire Google key set that you would need for the rest of these sections. Okay, and now that we have a list of businesses ready, we have a Google Maps API key. What we are going to use that for is basically in Views Researcher. So the idea is that we want to get the Google My Business data for any business. We also want to scrape their website and we want to fetch their LinkedIn information, combine all of that data together to get one holistic view of the company. And that is going to be all of the context that we give to Claude to then write a cold email to reach out to this business as a potential prospect or lead, whether we are building AI automation services for them or any kind of offer that you might have. So basically, for our reviews enricher, our LinkedIn enricher, and our website enricher, they are nothing going to be MD files, which are markdown files, and they contain like a set of instructions. So these are basically like skills, how you would have a skill.md file. This works exactly the same. So we specify a goal. So given a business name, website URL, or Google business profile, reference and output a structured JSON file summarizing the business's public review data. So these are examples of potential inputs, and we specify what we want the output to be like. So this is the JSON that we want, and we can give it a few field definitions: rating, what is the review count, what is top praise, top complaint, and stuff like that. Now, these MD files, right, you don't have to write them from scratch. You can just tell Claude to give it to you. So to look at a quick example, if we just ask Claude, can you please give me a skill.md file for Google Maps outreach if I wanted to fetch a list of reviews for any business name and get all of their review ratings, top praise, complaint, and any other data, overall rating or star count, and any other information you think might be relevant. They are Google My Business data. Okay, so this is an example of a prompt we may use, and we will see what Claude gives us. Okay, so Claude has finished running and it has generated this entire MD file. So if we scroll through it, it gives us the overview of the workflow, how it will find the place ID, fetch the place details, analyze reviews, and output an Intel card. Now, the main thing that it will need in the headers, as it specifies, is this Google Maps API key, which we've just gotten. And this is where we can use this entire skill.md file, but it is pretty long. Like if you see, there's a lot that Claude has given it that I think is a little extra for what we are trying to do. So I'm just going to try and use the version that I previously got from Claude, which is a lot shorter. And if you want the exact MD file I've used, you can find it inside the 100 AI Skool community. But coming back to our Claude response, so you can copy this entire file as your skill.md and just try it out, or you can use this one. So it's really about just finding the sweet spot. The main purpose that we want to specify is that it needs to make a request to the Google Maps Places API, and we will need the API key, which it will find inside our env file, and it should be able to fetch the results back. So that is for the Google reviews. You would similarly create one for a LinkedIn enricher. Now, the format may be slightly different where you specify name, role, company, headline, a recent post, and their senior or their seniority tier. You may specify a few field definitions, steps, and notes. Similarly, for a website enricher, right? You just specify the JSON of what you are looking for, or you can tell Claude, just give me a JSON that makes sense when I'm scraping their website and their LinkedIn. We're not using any API keys or anything like that for the LinkedIn enricher and the website enricher, only for the Google Maps enricher. And now that we have three MD files and our ENV with a Google Maps API key, we are now ready to start using Claude Code to actually test if all three of these are working fine. So I just gave Claude Code this command saying, hey Claude, can you please try running each of the LinkedIn reviews and website enricher for this business? And I just picked the first business that we had in our list. So if you see, I've picked this Goodwood Dental. You can pick any one of the businesses, or you can just tell Claude, can you just run these three for any one of the businesses just to make sure they work? So Claude is now going to fetch some of these URLs, like their website, like the LinkedIn URL, and the search query. So we will see what Claude does and come back with the results. And now that Claude has finished running, you can see that we have all three enrichers ran for Goodwood Dental. We have this Adeline Yeo.json for LinkedIn. So if I come in here and just take a look at this file, you can see that it has name, role, company, headline, recent post topic, and seniority tier. If we look at goodwooddental.json, we can see their rating, their review count, the top praise, and a top complaint. So, a recurring complaint is a lack of upfront pricing, transparency, and feeling pressure. And so, this is a pain point we can speak to when we are in a cold email. Basically, the whole point of everything we're doing is just to gather as much data as we can about the business before presenting them with an offer about how we can help with products or services. And just to make sure that Google Maps or any of Claude Code wasn't hallucinating and just making up any of this information, we can double check it with Google. So here you can see we have this Goodwood Dental, which has a 4.9 star rating and 202 Google reviews. So basically all of the data aligns. And if we check the last JSON file, which is this one, about what it is they sell, their target customer, key differentiator, and the tone they use on their website, we now have everything we need to give this data to our managed agents and then start the next stage in this process. Okay, so the next is going to be building a lead researcher. This lead researcher is basically going to be a managed agent that coordinates all three of our sub agents: the website researcher, the LinkedIn researcher, and the maps researcher. So it's going to synthesize all of their outputs into one enriched business brief. Wants to research a prospect or business before doing any kind of outreach, lead intelligence, or enriching a contact record to produce some kind of structured business brief from multiple data sources. So that's what we're going to be doing now. So you say that I'm trying to build this managed agent, which is going to use these three sub agents, come up with a clear MD file, which is going to be a list of rules about what the lead researcher has access to, what it does not have access to, the sub agents and delegation map, execution order and why, and what the workflow would look like. So this is what we give it. We also specify the structured JSON that we want as output. Then we also specify that we want a professional business brief, and this is everything that it's going to give us. I'm just going to come back into Claude Code. We have a new lead researcher file, which is just another .md file. I'm going to paste all of this in here, hit save. And now if I start a new Claude Code instance, we can use the same one as well. So I'm just going to run this for one example inside our business list. So I'm going to say, hey Claude, can you use the lead researcher to pick any one business from our Adelaide businesses lead research list and run them through this managed agent. And we're going to see what that gives us. So in here, you can see that while Claude was thinking, it says that Goodwood Dental has already completed all three sub-agent outputs, but the lead researcher managed agent hasn't yet to produce the final brief in JSON since the user wants me to pick a business and run it through the lead researcher. Goodwood Dental is a good candidate. Most businesses in the CSV haven't been researched yet, so I should select one of those to demonstrate the complete orchestration workflow. So it decides to choose CCK lawyers, which was also in our list. And now it's going to try fetching the URL. So we're going to allow that. And a few of the other pages, it may ask us for LinkedIn access and whichever pages it tries to fetch. So at the moment, it's asked for website. Then it asked for the about page permission. Now it's looking at services and a few of the other website pages. Okay, so now you can see that Claude has finished. It says all three sub agents are done. Now it'll synthesize as the lead researcher itself, outputs directly and without doing any further fetching. So it's gone ahead and done that. I think it's still wrapping. But if we check this ccklawyers.json file, this was the Google reviews file. This is their business site. This is the founder's information that it has scraped. And now I guess it's just wrapping up and still working on the final JSON plus business brief. So it's writing the CCK lawyers lead brief.json, which we should see in here. And that looks absolutely perfect. So you can see that it has the business information, website intel, LinkedIn intel, and review intel. So it has everything in here. Okay, so now that lead researcher has finished running, you can see that it's compiled all of the files and all of the sub agents' output into one single coherent file. And this is all of the context we're going to use in the next stage, where we're going to write a Claude skill to write cold emails for to these businesses and then basically pitch our product, offer, or service. Okay, so now we're going to look at Claude skills, which is basically just writing markdown files, what we have been doing throughout. So in a Claude skill, it's basically like a repeatable instruction or framework that we want to use. And so, if we wanted to predictably write cold emails in a specific way, we can choose a specific framework or format. In this case, I've chosen Hormozzi's acknowledge, compliment, ask format. So I specify what we're going to give it as input or some version of this. Then I tell it that I'm going to give you this ACA framework, which is acknowledge. So you have to reference one specific real observation from the brief. This is the hook. It must be concrete and verifiable. A funding, a specific post, a product launch, a job listing pattern, a website change, something that shows you actually looked and not some generic, I saw you work in SaaS type of outreach sentence, right? It should be just one sentence maximum. And then we move to the compliment stage, which is connect that observation to a sincere earned compliment. And we give it some rules. And then we make a low friction ask. So it should be something like, would you be open to a call? And then we end with an ask, which is a simple low friction question. And we give it a few rules on that. So then we give it the output format of what we are expecting. So we want two subject lines with two variants just to A/B test our subject lines. Same with the opening lines, which is going to be the first line, and then the core body of what we are going to be sending. So then we have some subject line guidance, opening line guidance, body guidance. You can write these on your own. You can just tell Claude to do it. Claude is an absolutely fantastic copywriter, so you don't need to give it much guidance, but obviously the more you give it, the better. So once we have our cold email writer in place, now we're going to tell Claude for the CCK lawyer lead brief.json, can you please through the cold email write MD file and give me a final cold email output that I can use to reach to this business. So if we hit enter, we're going to now let our Claude skill, which is a cold email writer, write the cold email for this specific business. And that is going to be this stage. And in the next stage, we're going to use our agent team, which is all of these agents through all of these MD files and skills that we've written work together and give it a single prompt to go through our entire list of 10 businesses. Okay, so our cold email writer has finished as well. You can see it has given us these subject lines. Your two Google reviews, Ben, which is the founder's name, and their two Google reviews, which speaks to a real pain point because based on what we got from our agents, it had two total reviews and an overall rating of 1 star. So that is a real problem. Or the alternate subject line it gave us was worth fixing before the next client Googles you, which is a fantastic subject line as well. Then it's given us a couple of alternatives for the opening line and the body copy and CTA. Now, this is where you can always iterate and refine this based on what it is you do, what it is you offer, the way Claude has written it, and stuff like that. Basically, all of this is going to be what's unique to you, your business, your product, service, and offer. But this is basically the process of how we go from complete scratch to getting a list of businesses to then getting a group of sub agents orchestrated by a managed agent and then using the output of this managed agent or this orchestrator agent to give to a skill like a cold email writer that gives us the final email. Now, in this case, I've for two examples of subject lines, opening lines, and this is just to A/B test things. You could just ask it for a single email in its entirety as well. That's always an option. And now that we have finished with this section, in the last section, we're going to tie all of this neatly together. And now we're going to use our agent team to neatly wrap this and tie this up all together. So we are going to use our business list that we first fetched. We're going to give that entire list to our lead researcher. Our lead researcher is going to use the sub agents at its disposal to fetch their LinkedIn data, their Google Maps data, and their website data. It's going to compile it neatly into one structured JSON that we're going to give a cold email writer. That's then going to give us the desired JSON output format that we need for each of the 10 businesses. And so then we're going to run this for each and every one of the businesses, and we're going to get a final structured doc that we're going to see right now. So if I come into Claude and just give it this prompt and say, hey, Claude, I now want you to run this agent team for each and every one of the businesses inside the Adelaide businesses lead research CSV file. It should follow this process of first going to lead searcher agent, which will then run the business through each of the three agents, compile all of that data, send it off to our cold email writer, and then we get the final copy that's ready to test on the business as a cold outreach. Please give me one final file with all the outputs, or create a separate folder, and each of the cold email outputs has one file each. So we're going to give Claude this command. We have given it everything it needs. We have set up each stage building on top of the previous stage, and we have given it API keys wherever it needs. So that was the beauty of setting this in an incremental order. And now we're going to tie it up all together, see how Claude does with this agent team. Okay, so that took a bit, but you can see what Claude did. It just moved stuff around for the two cases that we had run through for the CCK lawyers and the Goodwood Dental Clinic. And for the other 8 businesses that we had in our list, it has gone ahead and done the full research, written the cold email, and run them through the pipeline. So we now have our cold emails folder, one for each business. So if I just expand this a bit, you can see it has business, contact name, contact title, source lead brief, subject line, opening line, body, and CTA. So it has gone ahead and done this for all the other businesses as well. That's how you can use Claude as a complete end-to-end lead generation system. We learned so much in this section about how to use Claude Cowork to do lead generation and build a lead list. Then we came into Claude Code and we built sub agents. We gave those sub agents to a lead researcher, which was a managed agent and functions as an orchestrator. How to build a skill, and we used a cold email writer. We gave it a framework to write the kinds of outputs that we'd be expecting. And then we brought all of that together by using this agent team and everything that it would need access to build this complete lead generation campaign for us that we can go out and use with real businesses based on real data from their Google My Business profile, their LinkedIn profile, and their website. The only thing to keep in mind when using systems like this is to monitor the kind of token consumption you use. Like to run this entire experiment that I've been doing, it consumed about 40% of my tokens for this session. So based on how many businesses you're working with, that's just one thing to be mindful of based on which plan you're using of Claude as well. I'm currently using the Pro plan. If you're looking at doing this for a demo or not too many businesses at a time, it works fantastic. But if you were looking at scaling this up and approaching hundreds of businesses, you would be looking at some real heavy token usage. And I hope you learned a lot in this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.